the state of Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Okay, what is going on with Yu-Gi-Oh? Why does it suck, or why do a lot of people think it sucks, myself included? Not completely, which we'll talk about it, and I think there are solutions for what's going on with it. But what's really the issue and how it's gotten there? And just my 2 cents, right? Whatever I say is not the law. I'm not some sort of like super high authority figure in the community or somebody that's winning nationals or anything like that. This is just coming from just what would you call like most of people who play Yu-Gi-Oh, some sort of like Yu-Gi boomer or veteran player of the game that played this game since they were in first grade, like 8, 9 years old, and still plays it till today. I'm now 27. Has played through pretty much all the iterations of Yu-Gi-Oh from the early tribute summon, ritual beatdown all the way up to links where we're at right now of the game, right? So where did it go wrong, in my opinion? What's the problem with it right now? What was good about it? What is still good about it? What can Konami do about it? Because we as a, what can we do about it? Nothing, right? We can only try to criticize or point out issues to see if maybe someday they'll listen to us, which they'll probably not. And this game is probably going to go dead before they ever listen to the community. Hopefully that's not the case, but that just seems to be kind of the vibe from Konami. So this is why I don't like current Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's not that it's tough because so this video is definitely like it's not bashing the game or hating the game or hating anybody that likes the current format, okay? Because it's not all bad. It's still a pretty decent card game. It's just that the value proposition of the game has changed, right? The point of the game, how games play out, have completely changed from the original proposition of what the game was and was supposed to be to an extent, right? And the reason I make this video is not because I hate Yu-Gi-Oh! Or dislike it, is because I have a really deep passion for it, which I've explained in another video I made, which I don't know if at this time it's up or not. But this has been a fundamental part of my life, trading card games in general, but especially Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, so this is not coming from a place of like bashing, of like somebody who's not a fan hating on the game, or somebody who hasn't, somebody who used to like the old game and doesn't play the current game. I still play the current game, very much so. I play the current meta, I play off meta into the current meta. I'm more of a Master Duels player, and I don't play anymore in person, and most people that I know don't, which is part of the issue, and I'll get into why I think that is, and a lot of this is probably common sense, but I just want to make it all in a video, okay? And where I think we can change this. I think there is solutions that can fix this game, okay? And there is ways to make this fun for everybody, for people who like the new shit, people who like the old shit. I think there's ways there's actual ways, practical, tangible ways where we can fix this like overnight, okay? It's just a matter of the damn company wanting to do this or not. So, been just a little quick background here. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh since I was 9. I played it all the way from when we were talking like the first starter decks, Kaiba and Yugi. I played it in another country, Brazil, like very old school playground rules, like I attack the moon and everything dies kind of thing. And if you think here in the US was bad, we didn't get translated cards from English to Portuguese until very late, right? So imagine already the way people were playing here, not following the rules, and imagine if you couldn't even read what the damn cards do. Okay, that's how like make it up as you go our Yu-Gi-Oh experience here was, or in Brazil. I now live in the U.S., but and later I started playing in the U.S. I moved to the U.S. when I was 15 years old. Um, so yeah, so just a little background. I've been playing that since I was very young. I played in, never went to like nationals, but I competed in locals a lot. There's a store called Shinozaki, another Hot Yu-Gi-Oh! I think was the other store that they were always hosting these local tournaments, and I was an avid, goer of these tournaments along with a few friends of mine. Some of them more dedicated than the other. Um, Started, I think my very, very first deck was other than like the starter Yugi deck. I then switched to like a structure aqua water deck. And then later on, I became like a Destiny hero deck. love the heroes, and then I think the very last deck that I played with physical cards was an X-Saber deck. So that's my favorite deck of all time is the X-Sabers, which nowadays get absolutely no love, but I still like them for whatever reason. It's just like pure nostalgia value. I don't think they're good. It's just straight up nostalgia. But that's my favorite deck of all time, which ties into my favorite time period where I think that Yu-Gi-Oh stopped being good. So I think that, and this is just my opinion, anything after 5Ds, and some people argue that even 5Ds like Synchrons were already unhealthy for the game. I think it was absolutely amazing. I think that anything after 5Ds, after the Synchrons, so we're talking pendulums, we're talking link cards, from there on it sucks. And it's not so much the mechanics themselves. I think the pendulum as a mechanic sucks. I think the link mechanic, and I'm sorry, I skipped over XYZ, that also sucks. I think the only good mechanic of those is the link monsters. So that goes to show you, like, I don't think everything new is bad. Like, I actually really like the links, and I love that mechanic. I love it. What I don't like is the card changes that came with that, right? So it's not so much the links, it's the era and what came with that, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh has a problem that everybody knows, which is power creep, right? So how did Pokemon manage to not have so much of this issue? Magic doesn't have this issue. Hearthstone doesn't have this issue. Flesh and Blood, which is my most current favorite game that I play the most, doesn't have this issue as well. Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about Flesh and Blood at some point during the video, but if you're looking to an alternative to all these trading card games, you want something that you can play in person that has a pretty nice, thriving, gracious community. It's Flesh and Blood. It's a newer game, so you might not have heard of it. Not terribly expensive to get into. I run a Katsu Mask of Momentum type deck and a Fi deck as well. So those are ninja decks. But anyway, deviating here from the subject. So I loved Yu-Gi-Oh during that time. I think that what the big problem here that's caused power creep, like why does Yu-Gi-Oh have so much power creep? Does Konami just hate us? No, Konami is a company and they're into making money, like any company, okay? So Yu-Gi-Oh, for whatever reason, doesn't have a subscription model. By not having a subscription model, it forces the game, and I think this is something not enough people talk about, okay? They just act like for no good reason, and not that there is a good reason, but for no reason at all, Konami just made this game wild. And like, there's no like, they're just stupid, right? It's not that they're stupid, man. There's a reason why they've been doing this, and it's because they need to make money, okay? The reason Magic and Hearthstone and other card games don't have as big of an issue with power creep is because the way they make their money is they go ahead and do seasons. So they're on competitive format. You don't get to play with the same cards that you could last season. So that forces the players. There's good and bad with this, of course, but this forces the players to go ahead and buy new cards. Now, what that does for the game is it keeps the game healthy and it keeps the company profitable, right? So this makes it so there is an incentive to buy the new cards. Big one, right? Otherwise, you can't play the competitive scene. You can't play the actual current game. But they also don't have to change things too much other than like an aesthetic value, other than small things. They get to retain the essence of the game without blowing it out of proportion, right? That's the seasonal model. What sucks the downside is you got to put more money into it. But frankly, Yu-Gi-Oh has never been a cheap game either. I feel like I spend more, and when I played, I spent more on Yu-Gi-Oh than I did on any other card game, even though it didn't have a subscription model. Okay, so I don't think that not having a subscription model makes the game cheaper inherently, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh, because it doesn't have a subscription model, well, the company needs to make money. So how to make money? They go ahead and they make the card stronger and stronger every now and again, pretty often. And eventually, whatever deck you are running becomes obsolete or you can't compete with it anymore. So you have to make a new deck and buy new cards. Which, fine, that can be a model. The problem is that it's kind of fun, right? Because you still get to always play with like your whatever deck that you were running at that time. You get to always use it competitively, but you don't get to win. So do you really get to run it competitively? Probably not. It's nice that you can, but at the same time, you're not going to probably win with it, right? So I don't see much of a difference, frankly. And it's not like Yu-Gi-Oh cards are cheap. It's not like staying in the meta is cheap at all. Maybe now with the creation of digital versions like Master Duel, Magic Book, whatever the other one is, I just play Master Duel. What that makes it cheaper, but that's really the issue behind it, right? Companies needs to keep making money, so they keep making the cards more and more powerful. Okay, and what that's done with the game is it's completely crapped on it. And if we were just talking like attack and defense points, then fine. Like we wouldn't even be having this conversation because that would be almost like a season model without being a season model. The problem is that it's very hard to justify just making better versions of the same cards stronger each year that goes by or every so many months. What they've done is they fundamentally changed how the game runs, and not just the rules, but the flow of the game. So what I don't really like about current Yu-Gi-Oh is I was used to like an era of Yu-Gi-Oh where maybe you could argue that special summoning was out of control a little bit, right? Especially coming from an X-Saber main, right? At that time, man, X-Saber is just special summon, one thing after the other. My friends used to call my deck the ant deck, because you know when you poke like an ant, whatever you call it, like a formiguero, the house where the ants live, whatever the fuck that little mountain of dirt is called. When you poke that thing, all of them come out. That's like an X-Saber deck. They're just constantly shitting more and more creatures from the graveyard from your hand, right? So there is an argument to that. But I almost feel like that made the game even more fun, even more high octane. So it's like who can get more shit on the field. There was this like anticipation from what the other guy is gonna get on the field, and it's not like you couldn't get rid of creatures. There's plenty of cards that blow the entire board up. There's plenty of cards that there's a response. There's always been a response to everything. Like even for sticky cards, like at the time Stardust Dragon, there's still a million ways to beat them. Creatures that were boss monsters like 3,000, 4,000 attack, you can get rid of them in 1 second. Like good old Sakuretsu armor. Like there's a million cards you could use to still get rid of it. And that just made it like I think the 5Ds era was such like a fun, high octane moment for Yu-Gi-Oh! It was better than the original Yu-Gi-Oh! I think it was so good because it was just action, 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 action. Like I'll summon 10 things at once on the board. Your response is to summon 10 things. You blow up the board with one card. It's just there's just like constant shit like being summoned and blown up, and it's just encourages these really like complex plays one after the other. Okay, and the effects weren't very complex as well. There wasn't that much text to most cards. Most things were pretty straightforward what they did. There was an answer to everything. I don't feel like anything was particularly. There's always going to be the cream always rises to the top. Fine. There's always going to be like the top decks, but I didn't feel like something wasn't really viable anymore as much. There was an answer to everything. And like I keep using this word, but the adrenaline, like the game was just so high octane, man. It was just so like action, 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 man. That's what made Yu-Gi-Oh fucking amazing during that time, even better than the original. Um, so what happened? At some point, this game became a puzzle game. It stopped being like a strategy action game and it became like a strategy puzzle game, which is fine. That has its own charm too. It's not fine, but there is its own there is its own charm to it. Okay, the game became much more about how can you break down the enemy's board strategically without getting shit negated. I guess the bottom line is everything negates everything now, right? The main focus of Yu-Gi-Oh now seems to be not letting your opponent play Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, the main focus is your opponent. You like lock the opponent's board. They don't get to play. And the other thing that's extremely annoying about the current game is how often the opponent gets to play on your turn. Like it'll be my turn, and I'm just waiting to be able to like. It keeps breaking your train of thought because every little thing you do, the opponent has a million things being activated on their turn, a million effects going off on their turn, things they can negate, not just like the usual, oh, you attacked, I use, or you summoned, I use my trap card. Like, no, there's like hand traps, there's monsters that have 5 different effects. Everything is like special summoning from your grave on the enemy's turn, and link summoning, special summoning a creature on the enemy's turn. So it's like a lot of the time I'm playing this game, I'm just like, man, I don't give a shit what you do, just let me fucking play. I'm just waiting. Like I waited like half a century for you to finish your 10-minute combo there. You negated everything I did, and now I'm trying to play my turn, and you're still fucking playing. When does your damn turn end? It's just like, it's annoying. And you're almost like strategically having to play around your opponent's cards, which you've always had to, but now it's even more intense where you're almost saying, okay, if I do this, this guy negates this. If I do this, this guy negates this. So the only way I might be able to do this is if I bring this guy and negate the negate, to then negate the negate, to negate the fucking negate into oblivion. Like, I don't know. You're just almost like constantly deconstructing the board to look for like loopholes where you can still get to play if you break through these loopholes. And the game, it's much slower now. It's a much slower game because I guess people thought Yu-Gi-Oh was getting too fast. So this was a way to slow it down. But now it's too slow and you don't get to play, man. And I don't know if there's a way to come back from this anymore. Like, this is now a Pandora's box that was open that I don't have a lot of hope for, because what are you going to do? Ban cards that have negates? Are you going to ban Ash Blossom? Are you going to ban Tear Laments? Are you going to ban like, like it's just, I don't think there's not a hot fix for this. It's not one card that's doing this. It's not a couple. It's not like a season. It's like the whole meta and format and like multiple decks that just every modern deck revolves around this. It revolves around locking the board and preventing your player from playing Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what it does. What kind of a game that's supposed to be fun is a game that's preventing your opponent from playing? Like, I understand there's a strategic element to that. There is some, I mean, it is fun to some extent. In a way, it's like, I think that Yu-Gi-Oh has definitely become a little more complex. It's definitely, you need to use more of your brain. You need to read more, and that's fine. Some people are into that, but it's not. I don't feel like I can't. I feel like this came at the cost of fun. And a lot of people feel this way, and maybe you don't. And that's fine, because I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying like there is no place for the current Yu-Gi-Oh. I think there is. I think like I said, it has its own charm. I still play it. Like, it's not like it's all bad. But it is much worse. And the game is like, this is why I find myself playing this game less and less, and I don't play it every season. I don't play it as every often. I'll usually take like 5 to 6 months break after a while of playing it for 3, 4 months. I don't play it in person anymore, which comes to the next point. This is why I kind of moved to Flesh and Blood for the most part. But I still play Yu-Gi-Oh! But I don't play it in person anymore because, first of all, the community is pretty darn toxic. Like, that's just something, like, if you don't know whatever, like, Yu-Gi-Oh has gone so complicated and there's so much text to every card and so many things negate so much that if you don't like know everything that's going on, like, for your opponent and for you to read every single card and understand what's going on, a game will take all frickin' day. Like, there's so much deck search as well. Um, there's just so much going on to where I think the game is unviable to be played in person. Um, Disagree with me? Fine. Everyone I know doesn't play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore because of that. Like, they're like, yeah, if it's not in person, I don't want to play it. And I've tried to play it in person. There's too much going on and too much to keep track of for there to not be like the assistance of some sort of computer. And there's too much cheating. There's too much, like, if there's not a computer controlling the flow of the game and what can be done and what can't be done, it's almost like not humanly possible. And I know this to be the case because even in competitive tournaments, there's cheating and there's things that get overlooked by the referees because it's so much shit going on. You cannot keep track of this unless there's a computer guiding the flow of the game. And even when there is a computer guiding the flow of the game, it's significantly less fun. Um, because of all these reasons I'm outlining. Again, the point of Yu-Gi-Oh today is preventing you from playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, it's just, it's not as much of an action game anymore. It's definitely like a puzzle game. And that was never the proposition of the game. There's a ton of way better puzzle games that you can find out there, and I don't think a card game should be a puzzle game. Like I think that this is the wrong niche for this type of strategy, this type of game. It's just not as fun. So what's the solution? Because we can't go ahead and now and ban tier limits. We can't go ahead and ban like all these different archetypes. What we can do is change the format of the game, okay? And I think that the reason Konami hasn't like emphasized this and done competitive play, like really pushed the competitive play of other formats is because they're afraid that they will lose money because the current game won't be played as much, and then people are not going to buy the new cards, which I think is not true. There's always people that want to buy the newest and current shit. Um, and so, and for a company that every marketing for this company, every new set, they're banking on nostalgia so much. Like there's tons of newer versions of classic cards. Like Gaia has new versions of him. The Dark Magician has like newer fusions and versions of them. The Blackluster Soldier, Buster Blader, every one of these classic cards has a newer version of it, right? Which I think is such a cool concept, right? But they're banking on nostalgia. They're not these decks aren't even viable, right? What comes down to it is all this weird Link and XYZ shit that and sometimes doesn't even involve that. Just the newer decks unfortunately like push these out of the meta. So for a company that banks so much on nostalgia and understands intimately how much of their player base is now like late 20s, 30s, like people who were fans of the original show, they really sure as hell leave those people in the dark, right? And don't give them room to have fun. I think that there should be competitive play with essentially season blockages. And I thought that Master Duel was going to do this. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it. Like ranked as just current Yu-Gi-Oh. There should be like different modes, like they call it, like there's the GOAT format now, right? But it should be heavily promoted where there is a classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Where before 5D, where for GX, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and cards should be restricted to be played. Cards from these seasons should be the only cards that get to be played in those seasons. You know what I mean? So I think that that would create multiple levels of different competitive scenes, people from all ages, people. It would increase the amount of people that play the game, and it would revitalize the game. Again, I thought Master Duel was going to do this. They did not. And of course, Konami doesn't listen, and I think their game is going to start to die very soon. It's lost a ton of players. It's still pretty well played because, again, the game is not terrible. It's just a lot less fun. And they don't listen. And it's not like there's a ton of great alternatives out there, frankly. Like Magic is fine. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Pokemon is fine. I'm not the biggest fan of it other than collecting it. Yeah, Hearthstone I quit a long time ago as well. The only one I play now is Flesh and Blood and Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, I really think that the solution to this problem is dividing competitive play with different seasons. Um, and you want to create new cards? Fine, create new elemental heroes, destiny heroes, create new cyber dragons, whatever. But make them within the scope of the season. So like for example, let's go ahead and create a hero that we haven't seen yet, but we're creating a new elemental hero, okay? And he will be able to be played on the GX era even though he came out a lot after that. Let's see how that card flows within this competitive scene. Okay, this card is not overpowered on current Yu-Gi-Oh at all. It's actually bad, but within the scope of what this season allows, like the GX or the 5D season, it is overpowered. Okay, so it will be banned from competitive play for this season, and then that just means that fine, they made a bad card design because the card was intended to be played within this season for these archetypes, and it did not fit. It's too overpowered. We will ban it in this season. You want to play it on the newer with the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Where anything goes? Great. For this niche, for this restrictive season, it will not be able to be played. And that's a way to keep making money, keep selling new cards, adding more shit, which will make it even hyper, but still not having like, if they make a card nowadays, there's so much that they have to take into account. Okay, how many negates does this card have? How many attack and defense does it have? Is it a tuner? Is it not a tuner? Does it have fusions to it? Does it have an archetype to it? Does it come back from the grave 100 million times? Does it negate the entire board? Is it immune to monster effects? Like, All of these things need to be taken into account to see if a card gets even made nowadays, because it's not even going to be viable. Where if it's only specifically made to be played intentionally in a specific period and season, then that opens up a lot more room for keeping the essence of the game, and not just the essence of the game, the essence of that season. And that's what I'm trying to say. Konami needs to capture the essence of those seasons, and then fine, see what seasons are more popular and make more cards for those. Like even if you, let's say the original Yu-Gi-Oh, like Tribute Summon Beatdown, it turns out for whatever reason to be more popular. Okay, make new cards for that season that fall within the parameters of what's not overpowered for that season, and call it a day. And if it ends up being overpowered, because then the fear is, okay, well, what if this card, then that they start making cards for these seasons, but they're still overpowered, right? They're still ruining that season. Well, you can't completely restrict them from making new cards from those seasons, because I think that that would be a bad proposition for profit. But they can still be banned from that particular level of play. And the way you can think about it is like boxing, UFC. There are weight classes for a reason, right? There's heavyweight, lightweight, medium, whatever. Like there's different weight classes, and Yu-Gi-Oh should be the same way. There should be different weight classes, different seasons where this game gets played. So okay, we have the tournament today. We have a classic tournament, a GX tournament, a 5Ds tournament, and a current tournament, right? And you will have champions that are champions of the current game, people that are champions of, and not even the current game, of this era or that era. You can call them modes, whatever you want to call them. I think that that would not only be the best, it would be a solution to fixing the problem with how Yu-Gi-Oh is not fun anymore. I think it would revitalize the game, and I think it would open a floodgate of profit for Konami. And that's what I'm thinking too, man. For them, it would be so profitable, man. Instead of losing players that lost touch with the game because they don't like the current thing, go ahead and make different formats for the game, and make cards that are designed for these specific formats only. So a card is only viable within this format, but in this format, not only is it really fun, a lot of people like it, it's not overpowered, and it fits it right in. Yes, maybe if you try to play it on current Yu-Gi-Oh, it won't work out on the newer format, but that's fine, because that was not what the card was created to do. Okay, it's overpowered on this format, we'll ban it then on this format. That just means we made a bad design of a card for this format. And that's fine, and I think that that would create, like, dude, if, like, I'm talking like X Sabers and Heroes, which are my favorites. Do you think if they made like all new X Sabers and all new heroes that fit into that era and that meta of that season, do you think I wouldn't buy them? I would fucking buy them. I'd be so stoked, man. Like, great, more X Sabers, great, more heroes, great, more Cyber Dragons, more Ojamas, whatever it is. It would just be a way to make more money for them, and not just make more money. It would be more fun for us. I really, really profoundly and truly think that this is the solution to fixing current Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that this is the problem with current Yu-Gi-Oh, man. Like, I'm not hating on people that like the current and new thing. Definitely there is a place for that. I like it from time to time. I just don't want to just play that, man. It's like Call of Duty. If you just play, not Call of Duty, but let's say any shooter, you have one shooter. If you just get to play Team Deathmatch every day for the rest of your life, it's going to lose its charm. But if there's a little Battle Royale in there, if there's a little 1v1, there's a Search and Destroy, that spices things up. And that's the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! There's just got to be different formats in different seasons. And that doesn't mean like stop making new cards. Make new cards, but fit them into those seasons. I think that that would be a wildly good solution. I think the best solution for what's going on right now. And damn, dude, if and part of me hopes they don't do that, because my entire salary would go back to going back to Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I would be so hyped, and I wouldn't restrict myself to one season. That's the thing too. Like they would capture like 3 to 5 times the profit from most people, and from me for sure, because I would want to play the current Yu-Gi-Oh, so I would keep buying the new cards. I would want to play old school Yu-Gi-Oh, so I would go back and buy all the old school cards. And if they made new cards but for the old school meta, I would buy those too. If they did new 5Ds meta cards, I would buy those too. I'd buy the whole fucking thing. So I mean, profit would be there, the fun would be there, everybody would be included. You would get people that are 40 back to playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but at the same time you would get the Zoomers and the new kids that like the current Yu-Gi-Oh. We can, or whatever your age range is, but My point is that would get everybody interested in the game again, and I really think that this would make this game be the best game of all time. I think that is the ultimate solution to this problem. And you don't have to agree with me, but everybody I've talked to, they're like, man, that's such a good fucking idea. I really, I wish I wasn't a nobody. I wish I had some sort of influence, and that's how I would run my card game if I had one. Okay, and this kind of totally off topic here. I talked about this on another video. I designed a card game for this reason. When I was, I'm 27 now. I was probably like 22, 21. I'm kind of repeating myself here from another video, but I'm going to treat it as if you haven't seen anything I've done, which I don't blame you. I don't do this for a living. Um, so I created a game that I called Soul, okay? And the proposition of this game, and I'm going to kind of explain to you why you don't see a lot of new games coming out too, which again I've talked about in another video, so if I'm being redundant, I'm sorry. Not to get into too much details of this game, but this was a game that was about like demons, astral projection, spirits, and other dimensional creatures, right? And this game was a game that also, like Yu-Gi-Oh, had attack points, defense points, life points, but it was a game that had different like planes of existence. They had different like they're astral planes, right? But different levels. So creatures that are on one plane can attack you directly from that plane, but monsters that aren't in that same plane cannot defend you. And you're like a shaman, right? That summons these creatures, these spirits and demons. So like if I have a very high elevated creature, spirit, angel, or demon that resides on the fifth astral plane, it can attack you from the fifth plane, but if you don't have cards that live or dwell on that plane, you can't defend yourself. So it's almost like a race to see who gets there. There's cards that can travel in between planes and fill that role of being on the higher and the lower planes. Sometimes it makes sense for you to have really low quote unquote vibrational frequency or low plane of existence creatures because they get to attack from like the first plane or the second one. So you would kind of base that. So there's a strategy. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain without actually showing you what the game was. And there was mana, right, for summoning these cards, and there would be a mana system, like an energy system, and a life point system, and then there would be this like almost like a I don't know if 3D chess is the right way of saying, but different planes, whatever. So, and I would do that to my game, like I would make it so there's different. That's what I would do to my game if it got out of hand. The way I would fix it would be like that. I wouldn't make a season model. I would just separate them in different game modes and make cards specifically for those game modes. Not only does that triple quadruple the profits, but it also makes it that much more fun and more inclusive for people that like different things. Um, with that said, that's a totally another subject. The reason why I didn't publish that game, as I've said in another video, and not that it's amazing or better than Yu-Gi-Oh or anything. I like to talk about this because it was pretty eye-opening for me. Why you don't see a lot of card games coming out, why it's so hard for us to see innovation. It's because Wizards of the Coast is the owner of the world. So when I designed this game, I had everything done, the concept. I was about to commission art for this game. The reason why I didn't is because I started looking into publishing it, and I realized I was going to have to pay Wizards of the Coast a bunch of money. I looked at old court cases, lawsuits, and even Yu-Gi-Oh, believe it or not, had to pay, and I think still currently pays, Wizards of the Coast a shit ton of money because anything that has a life point, anything that has attack, defense, is considered quote unquote too similar to Magic the Gathering. So you have to pay these guys, these assholes, you have to pay them a bunch of ransom money. That's basically what it comes down to. So I didn't publish the game for that reason. That was kind of my dream. Like I wanted to make trading card games and board games. I soon realized that like there's these corporations that just have a monopoly on a concept, and even if you come up with something that for most people or to you is completely different, it's not different enough to where you wouldn't have to pay some asshole somewhere a shit ton of money to publish the game. And if you try to go against them, you're just gonna get buried in court fees, and even if you have a case, they'll win because they have more money. This is how the world works. So it's really shitty. It's hard to come out with new stuff, so I just say when new stuff comes out, try to support it if you like it with all you can, because it is so hard to publish new games now, man. And even for Yu-Gi-Oh, man, it was hard for them to come out. They had to pay Wizards of the Coast a ton of money, like I said, for licensing rights and to even be able to publish their game. And Yu-Gi-Oh is not that similar to Magic the Gathering. I would argue it has nothing to do with it, but they had to pay. And I think they still do. I don't know. But that just prevents a lot of creativity from coming out. But if you're gonna restrict, if we're gonna have these restrictions and new shit can't come out, we gotta make the current shit fun again. And I really think that this is a solution for Konami to make this game 5 times more profitable, increase the player base by a ton, and make this game like a fucking legend that it used to be. Like make this game amazing again. I think that this would fix everything. Like I genuinely think that this would fix all the issues that Yu-Gi-Oh currently has right now. I think it would make them a shit ton of money, and I think everybody would be happy to give them even more money. Because it sucks to give money into something that it's like it's all right. I like the game. The game's all right. I want to keep on with the meta. So okay, I'll begrudgingly give them a little bit of money. I might quit for a couple of years and get back into it. Versus man, if it was kind of the model I'm talking about with different seasons happening at the same time, dude, I would be willing to give these guys so much money. So I think it would be profitable for them. I think it would be healthier for the game, and I think it would be more fun, and I think it would bring more people to playing the game. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't want to. This video already got pretty long. I'm gonna cut it right here. There's other videos I kind of plan on making, more personal stuff regarding stories, my history of Yu-Gi-Oh, different funny stuff. I've done that a little bit in another video, but I didn't get too into it. I don't plan on this channel is really just a creative outlet for me, just so you know. I don't really plan on doing this for a living or doing anything consistent. If for whatever reason it takes off, which I highly doubt I might, but I don't plan on doing it for a career. I already have a career and I'm married, so I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands to just do this. And I work full time again, so this is just for fun. I'm just doing this like this is just out of passion, man. I just like I woke up today. I was playing a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh the last few weeks. I'm just like, man, I really need to turn on the fucking microphone and I got to rant. I got to rant because I feel like there's a way to make this better and nobody's talking about it and nobody's doing anything about it. Konami's not doing anything about it. It just fucking sucks because I love this game. I think I have a solution to make it good again, but I don't see anybody talking about it. So I don't know. Maybe like let's amplify this. If you think this could be a good solution, amplify it. Who knows? Maybe somebody at Konami fucking listens to it and it becomes a thing. And if it does, Konami, you have my word. I will be spending half of my salary for the rest of my life on fucking Yu-Gi-Oh, man. Because this would make it for me. Like this would make I don't know, man. This would become my favorite hobby once again if they did this. But again, let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments down below for the 2 people that are going to watch this video if you find it. Let me know what you think. And yeah, man. I again like I just want to hear what other solutions you think there might be to the current to make it fun again, or if you like it, that's fine. You can let me know too. If you think I'm an asshole, you can tell me in the comments. Tell me I'm an asshole. Uh, you know, yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.